Alright guys, so we're just going to start. So my name is Mark and this is Adele, and we come from Nord Anglia School, Dubai. I'm head of DT and Adele's head of science, and we're just going to talk to you today how we try and bring art and design into our subjects a little bit, and little activities that we do in order to incorporate that and develop our students' creativity within the lessons. So to begin, just to start off, this is a quote: creativity is seeing what everyone else has seen and thinking what no one else has thought. Okay? So what we're trying to do, we're trying to get our students within our lessons to think outside the box, to be creative. We don't want them to be thinking about things they've already seen. We want them to come up with different inventions, different ideas of something that would be new and that would relate to them a little bit more. And our next activity, what I wanted to begin with, there's loads of paper around the desk. I put some in the front row. I would really like, guys, for people in the top row, can we come down to the front row, because we're doing some activities which will include group work, so we'll have to work in groups. So if we can come down to fill up the front row, please, I appreciate that. Sorry for moving in. Just we're going to be doing some activities and it's going to be easier. That's perfect. And to begin with, I would just want you to quickly sketch a house, a bicycle, or maybe a car. Okay? Quickly sketch one for me. A house, a bicycle, or a car. Just anyone. A 2D sketch as quick as possible. 2D, yeah. You can just sketch it on anything, just a piece of paper. Okay, so we've all sketched something now. Alright, the whole idea behind this is we've seen a house. We know what a house looks like. We've seen a bicycle. We've seen a car. Okay, and if you ask your students to do this, they will probably draw something very simple like this. Okay, for a house, a car, a bicycle. But why? Okay, because they've seen it. They've seen it in their everyday lives, and that's what they're used to seeing. But as teachers, we're trying to get our students to come up with ideas that they haven't seen. Alright, and develop that skill. We come up with little activities to get the students thinking outside that norm in order to develop creativity within the classroom. Okay, the object of today's lesson is to develop an understanding of why we as teachers should allow our students to be open-minded and to give them the space and resources to do so. Alright? Our students are so creative, they have some amazing ideas, but we have to give them that space and time and the resources to do so. Okay? And a learning outcome to try and experiment with more creative activities in lessons to enable our students to have the freedom in the classroom. So I want you maybe to experiment, maybe the little activities that we do today, just give them that freedom, that space, in order to experiment and see how creative they actually can be. Okay? Okay, what I try to treat my lessons, creativity. So creativity, it's such a broad heading. But in design technology, I give my students that space, that time to be creative, just in order we can actually develop that strength, because we try and hopefully develop the future engineers, future scientists of the UAE and hopefully further on. So that's creativity. Personalities. All our students come from different places, different parts of the world, and they all have individual personalities which we want them to try and bring it out through their design, through their creativity. They have different interests, different hobbies, and that will all play a part in their creativity. Just like I was saying, everyone's different, they're a blank canvas, and there's no boundaries. Alright? Some kids might bring you design that is completely insane, completely mad, but actually isn't. Alright? If we look at the world we live in today, okay, we live in Dubai. We are so lucky to live here, and some of the architecture that we see around us is absolutely mad. It's absolutely insane. And if a student brought you one of these designs, you might say no. Please bring me something simple. Bring me something that actually is realistic. But actually these designs, if a student bought you one of these, you would say, well, that's not achievable. But actually it is. And we should take advantage of the world we live in here in Dubai and actually point out these type of designs and embrace it. And experiment and show it to our students that actually this is possible. Be creative and anything is impossible. Okay, so this is what I do in my class. I try and get the students familiar with the different design periods and what we might have seen previously, what would have influenced design back maybe hundreds of years ago. Okay, so what we got is, we got the still, we got pop art, we got art nouveau, we got modern, we got cubism, and we got pop art. Okay, so what I want you to do now for me in groups of 4 or 5, whatever you may wish. On the tables in front here, you can pass the paper back along for me, please. You will see that I've just a quick activity. So this is, I'm saying it's a phone case, okay? So this one's based on the still. So it's very simple, a phone case. The students have cut up pieces of paper and inspired themselves to relate it back to the still, and they're developing that creativity to allow it to themselves, okay? And this one relates to pop art, Art Deco, okay? So the students are developing that creativity and linking it back by just a very simple, it's just a piece of paper that links to a phone case. That could apply to any project. Any project that maybe you're currently working on, which you could actually bring that into it, bring the different design period into it, and relate it back to. Alright? So if you can get up and move around, please. There's papers along the front, and then you can start cutting up the coloured paper and choose one of these styles. It doesn't have to be two that I choose. Choose one of these styles, and I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes to see what you can come up with in relation to that, please. Okay? Thank you. But it's just an activity that you can provide a simple resource to your students with different design teams based on this. Maybe you could focus one project on a specific design team like pop art and ask them to be creative and actually link it to that as much as possible with a certain project. It could be anything, okay? I linked it to a phone case. You could link it to any project actually that you're working on in a minute maybe and actually apply that. So we'll get some ideas at the end, maybe some recommendations actually that you currently work with, okay? Okay, so we're going to do one more activity, a very simple one. What I do a little candy dispenser project. And what we do is, the main aim, the candy dispenser is just a regular body which I prepare for them. And it has legs, it has a body, and it has a head, okay? And I break the students up into groups of 3. I fold the paper in a group into 3, so it should be on your desk already folded. And you're going to work with a person maybe either side of you. Ask one person to draw the legs. Don't show the person, the group you're working with. Hand it to the person next to you. Get them to draw the body, so you can't be sharing these ideas while you're doing it. And then lastly, the third person will draw the head. And then at the end, you will see when you open it up, you will get something quite creative, quite funny, and it will engage the students in that thinking process. Actually, they're all being creative. They're all different because they're thinking about different things. But actually, when you put it together, it does relate to creativity. It is thinking of something different. Okay. So I have some more. I have actually quite a lot of these. So hopefully, if you're working in a group of 3, I have some more of these. So I'm going to give you 4 to 5 minutes just to have a go at that activity for me, please.
Draw the legs.
Sorry, here could draw the middle. Don't share your ideas.
Then fold it.
And the third person will draw the shape.
And the next person
And
then draw a
then you
body.
open up and see actually what you're
Fold it.
Okay.
I think we need one more.
Alright guys, I think we should be all nearly pretty much finished at this stage. So it's just that, it's a quick activity. Excuse me guys, can we listen please? Okay, so that could be a quick activity, maybe just to begin. Can we listen please? Thank you. Quick activity just to begin, maybe a starter of a lesson to get the creativity flowing, actually generating ideas for a very simple project that you could apply it to. Has anybody used that activity before? No. No? Is it something you could use? Yeah, so it's quite easy. It just, yes?
So what else can we give it to us except drawing the picture?
Miss is going to use that. She's going to reply to science in a second.
Okay.
So she's going to explain that. So you can apply it to anything in terms of developing. You can put a question on it and link it to something else. The next student will answer it. So you can apply that technique to a lot of different areas. So Miss is going to...
Yes, so the way I use it in science is actually I get the student to write down some kind of scientific concept or question, and then they pass it on, and the next person has to draw, rather than write. They have to draw what the concept or an answer to the question. They would then fold down so that you can't see the image, so that you can't see the word. They would then pass this on to the next person, and the next person has to write then what they think the image shows. They would then fold that down and pass that along, and the next person again has to draw it. And so you can go around as many times as you like, and you get some really interesting answers. Very simple. If I wrote down diffusion and they draw it, again, hide the image, pass it along, and see what the next person writes to describe what they think this image is. And it can go on and on and on. So there's many different ways that you can use this. Okay, so we find that creative thinkers often require demonstrated instructions, particularly in science. You can't always just verbalize or even give written instructions. You have to go up there and show them what to do, because creative thinkers need to see, they need to visualize. They prefer to draw objects, so some of my students will actually draw methods. I may get them to write down the instructions afterwards, but when writing a scientific investigation, they will draw the equipment or they will draw the concept. Obviously open-ended questions, not yes-no answers, not a question with a simple answer, but actually plan these into your lessons. Plan questions before your lesson and make sure they're open-ended so that students can really get to think about what is it that they're covering that lesson. And finally, allow imaginative ideas and problem-solving activities. So, one of my projects, I told them to go home, find a problem, find a concept, and we would create a scientific investigation based around it. So the students came back and said that their parents kept telling them off because they kept going home with whiteboard marker and paint on their uniform, and they're getting in a lot of trouble for it. So they designed the experiment. They wanted to find out what would be the best way of removing these materials from their clothing. And we did an entire investigation where they actually produced a big display. So this is my year 7s. And they made it arty. They drew designs, they had lots of colour on there, and we actually put this in the foyer of school because it did actually help our parents with removing the pen and the paint from the clothing. But they really got into the science of it as well, though. There was, on the displays, we had the problem, the hypothesis, the planning, the results, conclusions and evaluations. So they actually covered all of the science areas in the method, but they did it in a way that they enjoyed. And then physics and photography. This is actually my STEM club, my science club. We got the cameras. These were all individual pictures that they took where they leapt in the air and took interesting pictures, and we put them together. We used some photography programs on the computer to actually modify them, and they had a really good time doing it. They enjoyed jumping around and taking the pictures of each other. But I taught them about aperture settings and lighting settings, and it was all linked in with physics. We also did eye dissection so that they could appreciate how the lens in our eyes actually change just like a camera lens. So again, we studied the eye. This was slow motion photography. They used mobile phones, they used GoPro cameras to actually photograph a water bomb thrown at my face, which they quite enjoyed. But it showed about how forces and how objects deform. So we linked photography in quite a few things. Now this one at the end was actually to show the stomata in, the xylem in celery. And we used, I don't know if you've seen these before, it's a clip that you can get for phones. There's all kinds of them available. This one actually magnifies things by 25 times. So if you don't have microscopes, or if you have microscopes, these are really nice for looking at close-up images and even capturing them to save them for projects. So it's a nice little tool that we use quite a lot. This one's actually called an Olo clip. So this one's called an Olo clip. You can get all kinds. Olo, O-double-L-O, Olo clip. You can get them for all kinds of phones. They have different adapters for them. Most kids have got phones, so they can put them on there and take images of what they're looking at. There's a whole range of them. You can get them with fisheye lenses. You can get them where they have macro lenses. This is a new one, which actually will magnify things by 20 or 15 times. The one on here is actually only 5 times, so this new one is really quite nice for them doing projects, especially when it comes to magnification and cells and so on. You can see the stomata and the leaves really nicely with it. Singing and drama. We recently studied noble gases and transition metals, not the most exciting, uplifting topics to do. So we got them to make music videos, and they did rap and poems and They did a tribute to Queen using transition metals. They did heavy metal music. And they actually used iPads or phones. Again, a lot of them used their own mobile phones to actually make these music videos. Some of them that weren't as confident used the voice changers, the apps that you can get, and they made songs with pictures for their music video. And they really enjoyed it. And that, even 2 years on, my GCSE students still remember all the features of noble gases from the video that they made 2 years previously with me. So that's quite nice. Acting and performing. Mime as well. So they actually have to act out a scientific concept, and they have to try and work out what it is that they're doing. And pupil modelling. Get them to shake in the middle of the room, acting like a solid. Tell them what would happen if you give them more energy. They start running around and they become a gas. So pupil modelling definitely is kind of allows them to be creative, allows them to be involved in the activity rather than just seeing pictures of particle models. These are these are word clouds, and they are diagrams drawn with words. So give them a basic outline. My year 7s yesterday did this with the human body. Give them a basic outline of the organs, and then they use the words to fill in the shapes of the organs. So I currently have all around my room full-size bodies, and the heart is words of heart. The lungs are written as lungs. And then you can use it to get a little bit more detail, so you can do close-ups of the lungs and get them to write alveoli in a strange broccoli shape. You can use it for ecosystems, writing down all the different layers. It's really nice, and it doesn't have to just be, so you wouldn't just write tree in here. You can use all the words that are associated. We've got biology, we've got pigments, we've got entropy, all kinds of different words, just to fill in these spaces so that it can visualize, especially with biology. All these new words, it's like a new language to some of them. They can actually picture the word in the item so that they can relate better to it. And perfect. These are just some of the creative ideas that we have. So, the first one, writing using emojis. Sometimes the homework, they will have to write me an article or a piece of writing, but they actually use the emojis in place of as many words as they can. So we try and get them to use as many as they can so they can use the fun images and visualize it. Plasticine and Lego are the best inventions for a scientist. You can model anything. You can make cells. The Lego can be used now. These Mindstorms, we're very fortunate to have these. We can use these for actually speed calculations, acceleration calculations. But again, I have my year 10s learning about the structure of the atom using Lego to represent protons and neutrons and electrons. We definitely use Lego when it comes to balancing symbol equations. Sometimes they really can't get this idea that 2 carbons have to create 2 carbons. So by giving them 3 yellow bricks and saying that they have to end up with 3 yellow bricks really helps with balancing equations, I find. Cell models. If you ask them to go away and build a model cell, quite often they will come back and bring you cake. So that's quite nice. But cell models really allows them to be creative. When we're teaching cells, I don't give them any other instruction than go home and make me a model of a cell. They come back with jelly with mitochondria floating in it. They come back with pipe cleaners bent in all kinds of curious ways. But finally, physics in the playground. Particularly for primary school, I guess. We're fortunate that being a whole school, primary and secondary, we have this nice playground equipment, and they go out there and they get on the seesaws and think about forces and levers. They actually went out and the slide was too hot for them to slide down, so they started making links about convection and conduction and heat transfers. There is a whole range of lessons that you can do out there just by going out and playing. We talked about how atoms return to their normal state when we're thinking about how we push on the ground and the ground pushes on us. We had a trampoline so we could go out there and just look at things like that. So I literally take my year 10 and 11s out to go and play on the seesaw just to get them excited about physics.
So if anybody has any questions for either of us, we're more than willing to answer your questions now, please.
So, ma'am, can you please relate something with maths also? Maths for primary grade 1 or 2?
This one is actually, this I'm head of science and Mark here is head of technology, so we kind of
We can
just
only relate
focusing on
with
science and technology in this workshop. Having said that,
Yeah.
again,
One more question. Mostly I hear we have to keep the questions open-ended, and there should be no fixed yes or no. Won't it lead the children to be confused?
hopefully it will lead them to be creative. And as a teacher, you have to be able to kind of divert them, but without stopping them. So an open-ended question, you try to allow them to be creative. Now, sometimes they will go off too far on a tangent and they will be going the wrong direction. So you guide them back. But again, just a yes or no, they are right or they are wrong. And generally they won't learn as much from it. Whereas if they have to be creative and think more outside of the box. So rather than just being a yes or no answer, think about the wider world, think about what could go on. Quite often the homeworks I will set them is to go outside and link what we've learned in lesson to anything around them in the world. And they'll have to go out and I'll say, how does this lesson relate to home? And then they have to go home and they have to think about it. Rather than saying, does this lesson relate to cooking? And they say, yes, it's conduction. I say to them, during a heat lesson, go home and find conduction in the home. Or go home and find how this lesson relates. And generally they will come out with all kinds of wonderful ideas. And they can discuss them between themselves and actually help each other. So if they came home and said, I saw conduction when I was boiling an egg, another one might say, well, I think that might have been convection. And you get real conversations going. So it's nice to be a little bit more open rather than I ask you a question and you're right or you're wrong.
Because you're head of the science, I'm asking you this. What would you do with a very naughty class with many students with a behavioral problem? And when you want to run the class with open-ended question, the class gets very messy. It gets messy.
In that,
Even in the lab, the class is not under control anymore.
I guess certain activities have to relate to the classroom management and how your class works as a group. If that was my classroom, what I would probably do is have an open-ended question, but that they discuss in groups and try to differentiate, try to put groups together that would work together and might direct each other in the right direction. So I would probably put them in smaller groups and say, okay, this is the open-ended question, and I would go around and check that they're working on that. So that rather than just focusing on one person, you have smaller groups working together. I also sometimes have a soft toy, and I will ask an open-ended question and throw you the toy. Now you start to answer. Nobody else is allowed to talk unless they're holding the toy. But then you have the choice to throw it to somebody else. And so whoever's holding the toy is the one that can talk. And then they become more focused on catching the toy and having their chance to talk rather than everyone shouting out at the same time. So that's one tool that I've used before that worked quite nicely. We had a turtle, so if the turtle came out, they all knew that they had to answer if it hit them.
Yeah.
According to science activities, should we start with activities or starting with explaining the lesson?
I would tend to start with an activity that would inspire and create some imaginative ideas. Any kind of starter or plenary that gets them active. Normally I have a question on the board when they come in that says, let's think about, and then it will have a question or an image, and it might say, what is this? The other day I put a close-up image of mitochondria. Picture of mitochondria and said, what is this? And the imaginative ideas that came out were ridiculous, but eventually we then focused on it, and then we could look at the microscopes. I would say inspire them by getting active first, then explain the science, and then guide them towards the activity you want them to do perhaps, just to try and get them excited about the topic. Not all topics are going to be exciting for them, so if they can try and get hands-on, it's definitely inspire them.
Guys, if any other further questions or you want to contact us, just go to the Anglia School website and you can find myself and Adele, and our email addresses are there, so you're more than welcome to drop us an email and ask us any further questions or what. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.